During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about a question we occasionally get from non-farmers who wonder, hey, why do farmers do tillage one direction in particular, or put the rows of crop one direction instead of another direction that looks like it'd be easier or makes more sense?
Let me start by talking about the tillage. There's a couple things going on here. So you'll see some farmers will work at an angle across last year's rows, and other farmers will work directly the same direction as last year's rows. Why the difference? Well, there are a couple of purposes with tillage. One is to try to deal with last year's crop residue. So for farmers that say, man, I have so much residue, it's not even gonna hardly flow through my tillage tool, I'm gonna have to go at an angle just to get that flow to work a little bit better. And we see a lot of that out in fields, because to me, it's kind of neat. I was always interested in, why do you have this square field and you have angled tillage going through? Just getting residue to move through is one of the reasons.
Well, I look at more, we're trying to spread things around in the field. So rather than just keeping it in that row, so if there's a row that's got a whole bunch of residue, now you are spreading that across the field, especially spreading the fertility that's below the surface of the soil, spreading that basically from row to row. I look at that more than anything myself.
Well, here's the other thing though. When you're doing tillage, you're trying to set up the seed bed for the next crop that you're going to plant. And so you want things to be very even and smooth. So I get what you're saying about making the residue even, but I also don't want to have hills and valleys that my planter is going to be bouncing up and down through. That's why some farmers say, you know what, I want to go directly with my rows so that my planter can just float along nice and even.
Yep, so even on our own farm, we've kind of transitioned. In the past, it was more about residue, more about spreading out the fertility, everything else. Now we're probably more concerned with how even a ride does our planter have? And because of today's technology, we can see planting maps where we're having some problems from time to time, and it's like, you know what, let's just do the tillage with the row. And speaking about with the row, let's talk about how we're planting the rows, or why we're putting the rows, and in some cases the tillage, the way that we are, because we do farm in the contour and farm around terraces.
Well, unfortunately, on our farm and many farms around the world, the field isn't flat and the fields aren't square. So farmers are looking at, man, what is going to be the best way to go with my row direction to match up with hills that might be up and down and side to side in the same field? It's a challenge.
It really is a challenge. So I'm not saying that we have it perfectly figured out on our farm, but I will say in some cases our rows may look weird. They might be at an angle or something like that, first of all. And what we mean by on the contour is if there's a hill, we're kind of wrapping around that hill just basically like a terrace would. So if we have a terrace, basically a hill of dirt that we made to catch water so it slows it down going down the field, well, then we have to farm around that and farm at the angle that we put that terrace in. So it does make it a little more complicated, especially where we farm when we're farming in these hills, but that's the reason why we do it. It's basically to reduce erosion.
It honestly makes it fun for me to drive in the countryside and look at fields and say, I wonder why that farmer did it this way or did it that way. And it's also why you see maybe fields right next to each other or right across the road farmed completely different, and they both may be maximizing the terrain that they have.
Well, one of the things any farmer is going to need to do to maximize yield is control our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?